Maternity scandals, babies and mothers who were harmed or who died.
Unless people like us, people like you, the media, maintain acute scrutiny, it just gets swept under the carpet.
What's going on, you guys? I hope everyone is doing well. As you can tell by the title, today we're going to be taking on a different kind of topic for this channel. I know I usually like to keep things quite light and easy over here. You know, I like to keep this channel as a place where you can come to you know, not zone out, but somewhere where you can just come and feel like you're having a conversation with a girlfriend over some coffee, talking about trends and the topics in the news right now. But this is a prevailing issue that I definitely feel like needs more eyes right now, and no matter how big or small your platform is, I feel like I want to use mine to highlight this issue that I've been seeing and I've taken quite a personal interest in. We're going to be talking about the maternity crisis that's currently happening in the UK right now, a topic that's affecting so many women and families, and honestly it's a conversation that I think all of us needs to be a part of. So grab a cup of tea because this one's going to be a little bit longer. There have been a growing number of concerns regarding the maternity crisis that has been prevailing in the country over the last decade that has unfortunately led many families to be victims of a system that is now become defined by staff shortages, safety issues, and just a culture within maternity units across the country that many families feel like they can't put their faith in anymore. It's honestly so heartbreaking, which is why it's so important to shine a light on this issue, and even a video just as this one can make more people aware and can reach demographics like myself, because I personally don't have any children, and other people who may not be aware of this issue that's happening right now. So today we're going to be taking a look at what's really going on and try to understand what needs to change, because everyone deserves respectful, caring maternity care, and awareness can always help. I just want to put a quick disclaimer that this is a heavy topic, and I believe that talking about these issues is a step forward towards positive change, and I'm going to try and deliver this in the best way I can, mainly focusing on proven facts, not really be inserting my own personal opinion, but more so using this video to highlight a growing issue. I'm not a medical professional. As you can see, this is a commentary and news-based channel. I am just someone who's interested in this topic and would like to shed light on it. Check out some of the links that I will have in the comment section down below with certified medical advice from the UK. But if that's okay with you, then keep watching, and if not, there are many other videos out there, so yeah. Okay, so let's start with the facts. The Care Quality Commission, you know, the watchdog that checks how hospitals and healthcare services are doing, released some pretty alarming reports about how maternity care is going in the UK right now. They inspected over 130 units and found some pretty shocking results. About 65% of those units were considered unsafe for women to birth in, and that is over half of them. The organisations that run these hospitals are rated as needing improvement, or even worse, as inadequate when it comes to safety. That means a lot of women are giving birth in places that might not meet the basic safety standards. Stuff like delays in assessments, not recording serious incidents properly. The situation isn't just about safety. There are issues like long waiting times, lack of equipment, not always listening to women suffering after poor care. And this may leave you thinking, surely it's just a few bad apples out there, because of course many families thankfully are still going and having their babies and returning home with their babies safely. But no, these problems are increasingly becoming widespread, and they do contribute to an image of a system that is currently under a lot of strain. And obviously it's not just reports that tell us this. Many families are expressing their experiences in maternity care and talking about how their experiences were, let's just say, less than perfect.
Lucas was born at 3 o'clock this morning, weighing 3.2 kilograms. Mum and baby doing well. All anyone really hopes for. Here at the Royal Berkshire Hospital, maternity services are rated as good. But elsewhere, the health watchdog says too many women and babies aren't getting the care they deserve.
When you put your trust, your life and your baby's life in their hands, and yeah, we failed.
Margot sustained a brain injury during her delivery at a birth centre in Cheltenham.
We just knew that we were never going to bring her home, and you know, leaving with an empty car seat is one of the hardest things we've ever done.
Gloucestershire Hospital's NHS Foundation Trust has accepted liability for her death. The report says without urgent action that harm will just be normalised.
Yeah, which is disgusting.
And this has been ongoing for the last couple of years now. Chapter 2, Systemic Failures and Root Causes. Alright, okay, so now we've established that things are bad, and you're aware of that, and I'm aware of that. So, What's actually causing all of this? Well, honestly, it's a mix of deep-rooted issues that have been prevailing for a long time. First off, there's apparently currently a staffing issue in hospitals across the country. Hospitals don't have enough midwives. And to be honest, I think it kind of makes sense considering the culture of the work environment in maternity care units, which maybe is leading to less people feeling compelled to go into that profession. Hospitals don't just have enough midwives, doctors and support staff, and even the staff that they do have often feel overworked, stressed and burnt out, which obviously affects the quality of the care that patients are receiving. Then there's also the funding situation. Despite all reports of scandals, the money just isn't going into maternity services the way that it should be. And what little is put into maternity services often isn't enough to cover all of the needs, from staffing to equipment and other aspects that are crucial to ensuring that every patient receives sufficient care. But obviously it's not just about money. There's many different components, as I mentioned. There's also apparently a serious problem with the culture in hospitals. A lot of workplaces are described as toxic, with poor leadership and a lack of support for frontline staff. When the people caring for women aren't supported or listened to, that will obviously trickle down to the care that they receive. And we can't forget about the elephant in the room, systemic racism. Reports and stories reveal that Black women and women from minority backgrounds often face worse outcomes. Discrimination, language barriers, and a lack of culturally sensitive care all play a role in this. This is a crucial part of the issue as well.
Every single incident that happened is reviewed.
The report also found in some trusts women experience discrimination because of their ethnic background.
I work with Black moms and we know our outcomes are really poor, and we know part of that is down to staffing levels but also down to racism and health inequalities in the system.
Plus, some services are lacking basic communication tools like translation services, which makes it harder for women with limited English to express any discomfort that they're feeling during the childbirth process, or give their options or informed consent. All these issues, staffing shortages, underfunding, toxic work environments, and racism are heavily interconnected, essentially making the perfect storm which would cause the system to crumble. And until we fully understand how all of these aspects intertwine, the issue will not be improved. Many people will just continue to look at it from an outsider perspective as isolated incidents rather than looking at it as interconnected issues that have built into a maternity system that isn't fit to care for all of the patients adequately. Chapter 3, impact on women and families. So considering all these systemic issues, they're not just statistics and headlines, of course. They have real heartbreaking impacts on people and women and families. Imagine going into what's supposed to be one of the most joyous moments of your life, giving birth, and instead facing delays, unsafe conditions, or even worse, trauma. And that's become a reality for too many women in the UK and probably globally. And what makes it even more particularly tragic to think about is many of these stories that I am about to go over had preventable outcomes that honestly could have been avoided with proper care and more hindsight. But because the system is stretched thin or mismanaged, many families were left shattered and devastated. Chapter 4, government and response. So what's been done about all this? Well, recently Health Secretary Wes Streeting has announced that a national inquiry into maternity care in England has been launched.
The Health Secretary has launched a rapid investigation into failing NHS maternity units to protect mothers and babies.
We must drive real improvements in maternity and neonatal care, which will require clear direction, a change of culture, and for all of us to mobilise as a team to get this right.
The investigation will be in two parts. The first will urgently investigate up to 10 of the worst performing maternity and neonatal units. The full list is still being finalised, but it's thought to include NHS trusts in Sussex, Leeds, Gloucester, Mid and South Essex. The terms of reference will be finalised by July, and the report is...
This inquiry aims to look into the worst performing maternity care units in this country and look into what's going on in order to establish the correct reforms. They're urgently going to investigate around 10 of these units, particularly those where families have suffered the most, with the goal to get answers, accountability, and hopefully enact some actual change. And this is obviously not just to fix individual hospitals. I think ultimately they're also planning a system-wide review, which will be set up to look at past mistakes and come up with some clear actions in order to hopefully improve care across many other maternity units. PSA about the lighting. I'm using natural light and the lighting's just gone down, but you can still hear what I'm saying, okay? You can still hear what I'm saying. Anyways, back to what we were talking about. So I think it's essential that we highlight a crucial aspect of this whole situation, which is how this has disproportionately impacted Black and ethnic minority groups. Statistically, Black and ethnic minority groups have suffered the worst when it comes to their experiences in childbirth and in maternity care units, not just in the UK, but on a global scale. And that has been generally understood to be obviously caused by some of the issues that I have already highlighted. But on a different scale, in May 2022, the charity Birthrights published a report looking into racial injustice experienced by many in the maternity care system. In the year-long investigation, women reported feeling unsafe, being denied pain relief, and facing racial stereotyping about their pain tolerance and microaggressions. Since then, the government has set up a task force to tackle racial disparities in maternity care. While death in pregnancy or childbirth is very rare in the UK, there are stark racial disparities in maternal mortality rates. Black women are more than 4 times more likely to die in pregnancy or childbirth than white women in the UK, while women from Asian backgrounds face twice the risk. Investigations supported by the law firm Lee Day found common themes across the testimony it heard. These included Black and brown women reported feeling physically and psychologically unsafe during their care. Healthcare professionals failed to recognise serious medical conditions such as jaundice in black babies because white bodies were considered the norm.
Walking way outside, I remember just watching the door as people were walking in and, you know, coming back to sit down. And I remember this white lady, she came in. I think about after 30 minutes later, they called her and said, "Oh, so-and-so, come in now." And I was just like, okay, right. I then went to the desk and I said, you know, I've been waiting here for this amount of time. You know, I saw that this lady, you know, she came in, she was seen pretty quickly. And then they said, "Oh, we didn't realise you were still waiting," which I thought was really weird because where else am I going to go? The other thing that happened that was actually probably the most upsetting for me and my husband was the fact that when we were about to be discharged, they checked my son, they checked his eyes, they checked everything, and they said, "Yep, you're good to go." I was about to sign the papers, and then my husband was like, "Why are his eyes yellow?" And they were like, "Is it?" This was short, this was literally a couple of minutes after they had checked him, and then they did another check and turns out he had jaundice. And I was fuming because I was like, "So you were going to send us home? You were just done the checks, you had said he was all right and you was going to send us home."
White bodies were considered the norm. Women described racial stereotyping, microaggressions and assumptions leading to distress and trauma. Despite all the promises, critics say progress has been slow and that many of the issues we've known about for years are still unresolved. And some families and experts worry that without proper funding, accountability and cultural change, these investigations might just be more talk without enough action. So while it's good to see the government finally taking some steps, many believe that lasting change will only happen if we see real commitment and follow through because lives are at stake. Alright, so I think we've established that things are pretty bad right now, and it is good to see that the Health Secretary has introduced this new national inquiry, which will of course highlight the issue even more and hopefully lead to faster reforms and improved outcomes for future families, which is what we are all praying for. But I think it's important that this doesn't just remain as a conversation, because that's what it looks like it has been for a number of years. The issue has been highlighted, has tried to be addressed, but many families still disproportionately continue to be failed by a strained maternity system. So first off, there's a need for more staff. Hospitals need enough midwives, doctors to support workers.
Which we obtained after a 10-month battle with NHS England shows how many nurses and midwives are missing from maternity wards. Here's how it works. NHS maternity wards calculate or plan how many nurses and midwives should be on wards based on the number of patients, mums and babies, they usually have and how complicated they expect the birth to be or sick the patients are. And from this we'll get the so-called fill rate. Now let's imagine that this system says you should plan to have 10 nurses or midwives on shift, but on a given day there are only 9 available. That means the ward is missing 1 in 10 or 10% of their planned nurses and midwives. Now we found that half of hospitals in England are consistently in this situation in their maternity services, and we can reveal that 1 in 8 English hospitals are missing even more than that. 2 in 10, they are 20% short of planned nurses and midwives. And by the way, these stats don't include other types of care staff. But with this data, we can now pinpoint individual hospitals where maternity services are particularly short of planned nurses and midwives. At 2 hospitals run by North Cumbria Trust, 30% of planned nurses and midwives were missing from maternity services.
And importantly, they need to be supported and valued so they stay in the job. Now, I is also a big part of the issue too. The government and the NHS have to invest properly in maternity services and not just patch things up temporarily, but make long-term changes that can really improve quality and care. And then of course, as I've previously mentioned, the culture within workplaces across the country. We need more workplaces that are supportive, where staff feel empowered to speak up and where leadership is transparent and accountable. That's another crucial part, addressing the evidence inequalities that have unfortunately impacted the experiences of many patients and families. Ensuring that Black women and minority groups get the care they deserve with cultural sensitivity, language support, and personalised treatment. Plus, we've also got to just listen more to families and women who are at the hands of the maternity system. I understand that they have, and the Health Secretary's Treating has emphasised that families will be at the forefront of how they plan to take on this inquiry, but I think we just want to reiterate that voices should be at the heart of all decisions and their experiences should drive reforms. And finally, we need to make sure that the lessons from past mistakes are fully learned and acted upon. No more excuses. Accountability is the only way to move forward. It's all about building a system that's fair and safe and compassionate. Okay, thank you so much for listening to me talk about this topic. This is something that I've been reading about a lot lately, and I just really wanted to bring it to my platform and my channel. Of course, as I've mentioned, this isn't something that we typically talk about over here, but in any way that I can, I will use my platform to bring more eyes to an issue that's obviously really important. At the same time, give me some grace. As I've mentioned, I'm not a healthcare professional, but I'm someone with some sort of platform, and I'm going to use it for good where I can. And of course, I'm going to keep researching this topic, and I'm going to keep my eyes on it, as you guys should, because honestly, change is definitely needed. Okay, thank you so much for listening to me ramble on about this, and I hope we can talk more about things like this on this channel. Thank you so much for listening. Of course, check out the description down below, which will have resources and various places where you can learn more about what's going on with the maternity care system in the UK, and more verified voices that you can go and have a look at. But that's enough for me today. I'm signing out. If you like this video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
The first thing, the most important thing, is speak up. Don't stay silent. If you feel something isn't right, if you have an instinct about something, say exactly how you feel. Don't feel like you have to be brushed off if you're concerned about something to do with your body, your pregnancy.
The second one is to have an advocate for you. So that's someone that can speak on your behalf if you feel like you cannot speak during your pregnancy and during the labour. So that's someone that's clued up about what's happening in your pregnancy and your labour and can speak up on your behalf when you can't.
And definitely question anything that you feel isn't right by getting a second opinion. Trust your gut as well and ask questions.
Nobody knows you better than you. So if you feel like something really isn't right and somebody is telling you otherwise, you know your pain. So you know what's going on in your body, so trust your gut feelings and again, speak up.
And lastly, do your research. Research about pregnancy, research about birth, use trusted sources. You can go to the NHS website, you can go to nice.org, you can go to the World Health Organization's website as well. There's lots of information out there about birth, so know your rights, know your options, know your choices, and know that you can speak out. So if we can do this together, we can help to reduce the rates of mortality amongst Black and brown women.